Hello, brilliant students. Today we're going to talk about communication, a most important subject for all managers. So communication is one of the manager's primary jobs. Today's complex business environment depends on effective communication. Managers spend 80% of their day communicating, telephone, online, informally. So a manager's communication should be purpose-directed, direct everyone's attention towards the goals. So, many different ways to communicate. Rich channels, social media, upward, downward, horizontal, personal networks. Important to ask questions, to learn how to listen effectively. One of the aspects of most successful managers is that they know how to listen and that they look for feedback. Feedback is extremely important. So what is communication? Process by which information is exchanged and, most importantly, understood by two or more people, usually with the intent to motivate or influence behavior. So I'll bring a video on Thursday that we'll look at and see visually that will show you the importance of the communication network. Because what one person does is one person will have a message that they want to communicate, and they will encode that message in their language, in their ability to form sentences, and will send that encoded message to another individual. The second individual will then decode that message according to their understanding, their vocabulary, and their language. The biggest problem is whether my encoded message is the same one that you decode. So it's very important to get feedback to make sure that what you communicated was understood. Okay? Giving an example. My daughter's going out. I said to her, "Don't be too late." And she says, "No problem." I fall asleep and she's still not home. The next morning, she gets up. I say to her, "Well, you were late last night." She said, No. I was in before the sun came up." So here we have a total different understanding of the word late. For her, it was to be in before the sun comes up, and for me, it was to be in like at 2 o'clock in the morning. All right. Communicating among people. Communications can break down if the sender and receiver do not encode and decode in the same way. Usually if you're in a room and you talk to 6 different people, you will have possibly 6 different decoding of your messages. Cultural differences can add to the communication challenge. A lot of idioms in English do not translate into other languages. So people who are from different cultures, for whom English is not their first language, do not understand a lot of the idioms that were used in English. For example, saying, "Okay, we got to get our ducks in a row." For most people in the Spanish culture, they have no idea what the hell that means. All right. So, open communication climate means communication sharing all types of information throughout the organization. Excuse me. Okay, centralized network is where information has to come through one person. Decentralized is where people are able to communicate with various people within the organization. There are gender differences, and these differences affect communication. For women, talking means conversation. Women connect, involve, and participate through communication. Men use verbal knowledge to exhibit knowledge, or verbal language to exhibit knowledge or skill. Women's style may be more appropriate for leading. Managers must choose appropriate channels to convey messages. There are routine messages, and then there are non-routine messages. So communication channels has its advantages and disadvantages. For example, low richness, least ability to be able to code and decode are reports and bulletins, letters and memos, because you don't get feedback. Electronic messages, email, Twitter, blogs tend to allow for feedback. Telephone enables you to communicate and to get instant feedback. And of course, the best way to communicate is face-to-face communication, where not only can you see how the person responds to your message, but also can get an instantaneous response. Okay? So, advantage of face-to-face and richness communication is that it's personal, two-way, and fast feedback. All right. The old letters and memos, advantages are you get a permanent record, you are able to think about it ahead of time, and then they're easy to disseminate. Disadvantages of the face-to-face communication: no personal record, spontaneous, you can make a mistake, say the wrong thing, and you can't disseminate it. Disadvantages of the letters, memos, reports, bulletins is that they're impersonal. They're one way and possibly no feedback. All right? So communicating is extremely important. It's extremely important for you as an individual to learn how to speak, to be able to speak to groups, to have a reasonable vocabulary. And these are things that you can learn and train yourself to do better. All right? You expand your vocabulary. You can practice speaking. You can join an organization like Toastmasters, where people go there and practice speaking to each other. You can take a course on public speaking, because you need to be able to persuade and influence the people that you supervise. And you can't avoid having to speak to people, whether it's to give a report, to communicate your ideas, all of which is very important for your advancement. So communication with candor. Use I statements, stick to facts, rather than judgments. Be clear, specific, and direct in your requests. Can I have that report by the end of the week? Okay, that's not really clear. Can I have that report by Thursday? Now that's clear. So little things like not being specific can make your communication ineffective. So asking questions is very important. If you ask questions of people, then you will get what they're thinking, you'll get their opinions. It builds trust and openness, helps build critical thinking, will stimulate the mind and give people a chance to make a difference. So don't hesitate to ask questions of your employees, and you should do that on a regular basis. Listening skills. Xerox Corporation, when it was having problems, sent all of its employees to school to learn listening skills, because their customers were complaining that the salespeople and the operations people weren't listening to what they wanted. So listening is a very important skill. You have to give the person your attention. You can't be doing something else. You have to look them in the face. You can't have distracting noises or other activities. So learning how to listen is very important. Information in an organization should flow from the bottom up, so that way it's important for you to be able to listen to those people that are at the bottom. So here's 10 keys to effective listening. So it's very important that you take listening seriously, and even take notes, jot down some things afterwards, but definitely maintain eye contact, and don't put artificial barriers between you and the person who is communicating with you. So The other thing that most of us don't realize is that we do a lot of nonverbal communication. Messages are sent through body language, facial expression, gestures, touch, use of space. The person who has a desk between the person who they're communicating with, that desk is often seen as a barrier. It's like having a moat at a castle, okay? If you cross your arms when you're listening to someone, that is generally seen as a hostile gesture. If you raise your eyelids, if you make a smirk, those facial expressions can say that you're not really interested, you don't care what they say, it's not important. Throwing your hands in the air, all of these physical behavior items are nonverbal communication. Can express warmth, confidence, arrogance, indifference, displeasure, and can totally distort the verbal message that you're trying to convey. So the nonverbal communication, your physical activities are very important in terms of being able to get your message across. Right? So managers must now know how to use social media, personal communication channels, always the formal communication channels, and there has to be some strategy for how you're going to communicate if there is a crisis. So social media now, and just the example, a few days ago, the president of Turkey saved his administration by going on the national network and sending text messages to every citizen in Turkey to come out in the streets and to support his administration. Probably the greatest use of social media in history, because it literally brought thousands and thousands of people into the streets and stopped the coup in Turkey. Right? So you have to figure out how the new technology can be effective and how it can be used in your organization. Personal communication channels are very important. It's very important that you have a network across organizational boundaries, that you are somehow able to tap into the grapevine, because often the organizational gossip could often be a very, very effective tool in terms of accomplishing your goals. And of course, the written communication is important in terms of email and collaboration. So you can see people here who have greater connections, bigger networks, and they're able to communicate and get more information. So how do you build a network? First of all, you need to build it before you need it. Very important, never eat lunch alone. I always made sure that I went to the faculty cafeteria at least once or twice a week, just to sit down with my colleagues and to hear the gossip and to learn what was going on in other units and other divisions. So establishing that even the lunchtime network is very important. Right? So if you have a network, you want it to be win-win. You want people to share things with you that will be helpful to your success, but you also have to share with them and make sure that you share things that they might want to know or that might help them. Okay? So, writing. Respect the reader, get to your point, do it quickly, write clearly rather than impressively, get a second opinion. So, writing skills, it's most important to be clear, short, and to the point. You're not writing a piece of literature. You're not writing a speech. So your business writing skills have to be such that people can understand what you want right away. The easiest way to remember is the 3 points. One, in the beginning of what you're going to write and say, tell them what you're going to say. Then tell them, and then tell them what you said. Use those 3 points to do it very